This is Nattering with E with your host, Eric Friedlander.
Brundan returns for another episode of Nattering with E. What up, world? It's your boy E coming at you from the Nattering with E studios. Once again, I'm joined by my good buddy and pretty much a co-host at this point, I'd say. If you followed us for the first 37 episodes, he's on most of them, I would say. So we're back with Mr. Brundan Haney from the States, the Mets fan, the dude who knows everything about everything. And fun fact, he is also the president of the Michael Mann fan club for Wizards News. So Brundan, what's going on, my man?
Nothing much, man. Good to be back. Been a while. Been a busy couple of months. But time to refocus and get back to, fun things like this.
Absolutely, man. Honestly, I'd do this every day if I could, but
I would too. Yeah, I'd run out of things to talk about real fast, but I would definitely do this. Try and do this every day.
To steal our good pal, High Five Tom, who you heard on the Punisher episode. To steal his line, it's our podcast. We can do what we want.
Damn right.
I'm paraphrasing because he swears during that bit, but I
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm gonna. I almost forgot to watch my mouth. So.
Yeah.
Just like in the real life, I gotta make sure I keep the curses under wraps.
Yeah, exactly. So today with Brundan, we're going to be looking at our favorite books of all time. We narrowed it down to 5 somehow, which seems impossible. We were saying off air, seems absolutely impossible. But yeah, we're going to go over that, and it's Nattering with these. So of course we'll be going off topic about random things. So
yeah, of course.
If this goes shorter than 4 hours, we will be thrilled.
Oh, man, if this goes 4 hours, you're gonna have to wake me up in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. No. I've been getting them down to like 50 minutes to an hour, which I think is fine.
Yes.
Because previously, like, you and I have done ones that are like about 90, which is fine as well.
Yeah, I think the wrestling books one was about 90 minutes.
Yeah, and
that was like the few top 5s, like top 5 for wrestlers books and something else.
And when we first discovered, well, you already knew about it, but when I first discovered like how great Matt Tremont is in the ring,
yes,
that ended up going on for like 90 minutes. Funny story. So, in 2022, I think it was 2022, I hopped on an ROH pod with Ant Money and Kyle K. Sparks for Mark Order, and as you know, for Mark Order, those guys go from like 10 at night to like 4 in the morning.
Yes.
So it's literally like 2:30 in the morning. Ant's like hitting his stride, and me and Kyle Sparks are just like, okay, we're good, man. We're good. He's just like, no. So anyways, so he cut it.
Maybe 10 years ago I could have done that.
Yeah. He cut it after like 2.5 hours or whatever. But then I ended up talking to him because Kyle like conked out and went to bed. But off air, I ended up talking to Ant for like another like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I was like, I couldn't keep my eyes open. I'm like, I have no idea how night owls do it, So
I used to be one. I used to stay up till 1, 2 in the morning and get 4 hours of sleep and everything. But now, I'm hitting it hard after 11 o'clock. I'm just like, all right, I'm done. I went to the Rumble, or not went to, but I went to a buddy's house for the Rumble on Saturday and Sunday. I was just dragging all day long. I took my son to visit my dad, and I just fell asleep on his chair for an hour.
yeah,
It's like, you guys have fun. I'm gonna sit on this recliner and snore.
yeah, exactly.
I had to be up at 7 in the morning, 7:30 in the morning too. So after Rumble was so good, so I wasn't able to just come home at 12:05 and conk out. I was probably up for another hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Rumble, what did you
Yeah.
think of so a couple questions for you. One,
Mhm.
which match did you enjoy the most? Two, um, men's or women's Rumble, which one had better surprises in your opinion? And three, do you think Roman should have retained?
So first and second, I enjoyed the women's rumble the most. If anybody listens to the Shining Wizards, they heard me jokingly say I agree with Tony with everything. About the rumble, just that was only half to piss off Matt. I truly did really enjoy the women's rumble. I thought it was a fun match. It did, like people say, it did kind of slow down in the middle at some point or another, but it had great surprises. Jordan Grace blew my mind, and I mean, they came out hot with Naomi returning as number two, Bailey coming out as number three, being the Iron Woman, being my pick also, and
Mhm.
then her getting all the way. That was awesome. Jade Cargill debuting. That was about the best debut you could hope for in a Rumble. Right, she looked awesome. She looked like a force. She threw out Nia Jax, who I hate more than anybody, minus maybe The Miz and WWE. So I'm a Jade Cargill fan right away. So yeah, Women's Rumble was awesome. Men's Rumble was good. It had some good surprises, but yeah, the women's one took the cake for sure.
Yeah,
Uh, Go
sorry
ahead.
from
Yeah.
what I was checking out with like I mentioned before, I did the lame thing and followed via Twitter, but there were like some
Yeah.
videos on Twitter too. So seeing like Jordan Grace and Naomi hug and then
Yes.
be like, oh, by the way, we're rivals too.
Yeah.
They just went to blows. I was like amazing.
Yeah, that was
Uh
good.
um Bianca hitting her finisher on Jordan Grace to eliminate her.
Oh
Like, oh my
God,
God.
yeah.
That looked
That was
brutal.
that was rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a rough one. And
Yeah.
then for Roman retaining, yeah, 100% he should have retained because I'm one of those people that Cody needs to finish the story. Roman's got a couple more months with this, but he should not lose this to anybody but Cody. Cody Rhodes, basically, like they'll neuter him if he doesn't win this one.
Mhm.
So yeah, he should he should lose it on the biggest stage of all with the biggest build up again. So as much as I love LA Knight, I love AJ Styles, as we've talked about on this podcast.
Mhm.
Um, who was the other one in there?
Randy.
Brain fart. Oh yeah, and Randy
Randy.
Orton's great. I mean, he's always everybody always says if you want to start a federation, Randy should be your number one pick. The guy's great, but yeah, nobody but Cody should be winning that belt.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I
in that my opinion.
I still remember years ago with Randy Orton. I think it was Backlash like 2008. So it's
Yeah.
him versus Triple H when they had remember where Randy Orton he punted Stephanie McMahon and
Yes.
Triple H was handcuffed and stuff.
Yeah.
So the blow off match I think was at Backlash and you know how he sets up for the RKO and he's punching the mat?
Yeah.
He
I know where
somehow
you're going.
he hit the mat so hard he popped his shoulder out and like he missed like 7 months for
Yeah.
that. Like they had
Yeah,
to
I
call the
remember that.
audible or something.
That
So
was a yeah, I think the month before they did Mania and Triple H won.
mhm.
And then I think he won. Yeah, yeah, he had to win that one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I
The plan apparently was for Orton to win, but then when he blew out his shoulder, they had to like call the audible and like
yeah.
close it real quick. But
Yeah, I always anytime he hits the mat, I always get nervous because I think back to that.
yeah, 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 yeah. But the
Yeah,
RKO is a great finisher.
it
It's
is. Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah, his RKO on Roman when Roman was going for the spear. That
Mhm.
was chef's kiss right there. That
Yeah,
was
yeah,
so good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
My favorite RKO. If we're sidetracking to favorite RKOs, the two best ones that come to mind for
mhm.
me. Money in the Bank. I want to say 2017. I might be wrong on the actual date, but the one where RVD went to like jump to get the title, he flips him off the ladder and hits the RKO as he's coming down,
Oh, jeez,
and
that's
then
awesome.
and then ends up grabbing the briefcase. And I think no,
Mhm.
that was the year. That was the year that he cashed in on Daniel Bryan, where the Authority was born. So that would have been what,
Yes, yeah, that was
2014?
14.
14, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other one was remember when they were building Brock up to be like nobody can stop him, and Randy Orton was going to be his first victim or whatever. And
Hmm.
so there's like this, it's always on YouTube, this random clip of Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar are in the ring and they're mocking Randy, saying he has no balls and like he'll never be able to hit the RKO. And Orton comes out of nowhere, hits the RKO on Brock, and just goes up to Lesnar, and he puts his ear like the Hogan, like hearing the fans thing, and he's like,
Yeah.
"What was that? What was that? Oh, the voices in my head. The voices in my head." I'm like, "Oh, amazing, amazing
I
stuff."
always go to my go-to is always the one with Seth, where Seth goes for the curb stomp and Orton catches him out of it, and I always love that. You know, they were like, "Oh, I don't think this is gonna work." They were gonna this gonna do, and they were like, "Ah, F it, let's go for it."
Mm.
And it was. I remember watching that one live and just, oh my God, what an RKO that was. That
Was
was a
that
great
Mania or
WrestleMania.
SummerSlam?
No, that was Mania because then
Mania.
Seth cashed in that night on Brock and Roman.
Right, right.
Original Brock and Roman match that was oh my God, that was good.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe some of the rest of them weren't, but that one was so good.
yeah. 10 years later, what's your expectation now with like? Do you think Priest eventually cashes in and takes the title from him, or what do you figure happens?
I have no idea what they're gonna do with Priest at this point. Like I feel like the he should have cashed in last Monday, but he didn't. So I feel like Priest's gonna be Damian Sandow and just lose, or Baron Corbin, or
Yeah.
you know John Cena actually didn't cash in correct once too.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That's
but that
true.
was because the Big Show.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
I used to love when every time Seth would try and cash in, Dean Ambrose would be like, "No, I'm gonna stop
Yes.
you," every single
That's
time.
right.
Like he just hated him so much. He was like, "I'm just gonna prevent you from this forever."
Yeah,
It was great.
that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we'll switch over to getting into our favorite books.
Yeah.
So, Brendan, this was your idea. What was the inspiration behind doing this?
Just to, I know we always talk about wrestling and everything, just to try and do something different. I I'm not as much as a reader as I used to be, but certainly I think probably from like 16, 17 on, I was always reading something. And I mean lately with I'll blame slash take I'm losing my word for that. But put it on myself that I haven't been reading as much. I would rather just, sit there and watch YouTube shorts or stuff like that, or YouTube videos. Then again, some of the videos I watch are informative, but I'd like to get more back to reading because for many years there, I was always reading something, whether it was the same book 15 times over and over again, or, you know, walking everywhere and listening to audio books on CD or stuff like that. So, it's fun. It's fun to see where people's favorite books are,
Yeah,
what genres, and if they have a mix or they go down one thing.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
while I have five, there's certainly I can make a list tomorrow and it'll be five other books.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's like me with music too. Is
Yes.
I can't narrow it down to like a top five favorite bands. Like I know when, I don't know if you did this too when you first started dating your wife, but like when
Hmm.
I go on dates, one of my two of my only two questions I care about are top five favorite bands of all time
Hmm.
and top and like favorite food of all time. That's all I care about when I talk to these people.
Yeah, my wife and I have different genres of music. We agree on a lot of music as well, but I go hardcore and she goes a little more like pop or soft, but we always meet in the middle.
So does she love Seven Dust or only Seven Dust acoustic stuff?
Probably just Seven Dust acoustic.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, she's like a fan of like the 90s grunge I am and
Mhm.
classic rock bands like I am. Like we went to last year sometime we went to a cover band show and they had three different cover bands for one for Weezer, one for Stone Temple Pilots, and one for Nirvana, and we just had the greatest time. Like
That's awesome.
especially the Stone Temple Pilots one, like if you just closed your eyes and didn't look at the band, you were thinking you were listening to Stone Temple Pilots. They were so good.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was so much fun and ironically two of the bands came back around and I had to miss it because it was Saturday and I wasn't missing the Rumble.
Yeah, exactly.
Not for 90s grunge night. But
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean for that. For me, I've always been like when I've really vibed with someone who I've been like dating, it's always been music based, or it's been like uh because otherwise it's like we have nothing in common
Yeah.
besides the tunes. Besides the tunes. Like I'll try and discover their other stuff, but I'm like, I have nothing in common with you. Like
Yeah.
I was with someone over the summertime who big into like her favorite book's the Bible.
Okay.
So she's taking like Catholic courses and stuff like that and
Hmm.
was like if this goes anywhere and we end up having kids, we're totally raising them Catholic and in the Catholic school board. And I'm like, you know, I'm Jewish, right? That's what I said to her. And she's just like, so what's that have to do with anything? I have friends who are married to Jewish guys and they still go their kids still go to Catholic school, and I'm like, yeah, that ain't happening, man. Just not a thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we would talk books, but then besides that, like she could care less about wrestling or like art or things like that. So
Yeah, yeah. My wife enjoys wrestling, like going to the live shows that we
yeah,
have in my town. She's gone to a couple of WWF ones with me over the years and other stuff. She's not gonna watch it every week, but she lets me still have my indulgence all the time and
nice.
encourages it, of course, too.
Yeah, that's
Everybody
awesome.
needs that advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Having a release is huge.
Yeah.
So let's go with your first book. What's the first book that you want to talk about?
All right. So, I'm gonna do this in no particular order because I hate ranking top fives.
Yeah.
I like doing top fives, but I hate ranking them because I love all these books. So, I am gonna go with a J.R.R. Tolkien's Return of the King.
Ooh, nice.
Um, I absolutely love The Hobbit. I love all the books, Fellowship, Two Towers. But to me, Return of the King was my favorite one. Have you ever read it,
Yeah,
or
yeah, I
or at least
remember
seen
it
the
for sure.
movies?
I read all the Hobbit books when I was younger, and they were
Yeah.
phenomenal. Like just they're thick reads, but they're like
Yes.
compelling too. That's the thing.
So I when I was a kid, I skipped a lot of school,
Nice.
and I'm actually going somewhere with this. So one night I knew the next day I wasn't gonna go to school, and I was super like still like hyped, not hyped up, but like I knew I wasn't going to sleep anytime soon. So I was looking at my bookshelf and I saw a copy of The Hobbit on it. And I was like, I remember seeing cartoon movies when I was a kid. This was before the movies. I'm 42 years old, so movies weren't even a thing then.
Mhm.
So I remember seeing the cartoon movie when I was a kid. I enjoyed this, picked it up, and I didn't put down Lord of the Rings books for like months.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and Return of the King is, I mean, I loved the Battle of Pelennor Fields. That was one of my favorites, like ever. I had it on audio cassette for a while, like a big like 14 tape and still abridged 14 tape like set of tapes, and just hearing them read like when when the Witch King comes in, and hearing them read about that, and then Gandalf helping throwing them back, and all these other stuff, it just like gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, that's
So
crazy.
yeah, as much as I did love all the other ones, Return of the King always has a special place in my heart.
So that was the first one that you read, or
No,
you
no,
got to it eventually?
I got to it eventually. I read them in order. I read The Hobbit. I read Fellowship, Two Towers, and then Return of the King. I've never. I tried reading the Silmarillion, and I could just never get through it. But a lot of people say that like it's more of like a history of Middle Earth and everything else. Maybe I'll try it on audio and listen to it. Sometimes I find that I can get through stuff better like that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I was going to ask you actually with books, two things.
Hmm.
For audiobooks, do you find like now that we're not that far in age apart, like I'm 35, you're 42, so we're roughly
No,
in the
yeah.
same bracket. But do you find like being our ages now, like when you're listening to an audiobook, the narrator's voice has to hook you, whereas maybe when you were a kid listening to those audio tapes, it didn't really matter. Like you just figured, like these guys are good actors. Or...
N- I don't think the narrator. I've never had that George Costanza moment where the narrator sounded like Costanza himself. Seinfeld reference
I
there,
remember
but yeah, I've
that.
never really had that moment. Luckily, I've listened to probably hundreds of books on. I'm always gonna call them books on tape because I'm older than CDs. So I've listened to tons of that. I was diagnosed ADHD when I was younger, so I was able to listen to books when I was a kid. Like my summer reading, I was able to do tapes. So I always think books on tape. So I started that as a young age, and always continued on. Like I didn't drive for years, so I was always taking buses and uh walking and everything. So instead of listening to sports talk radio or music all the time, I would get check something out from my local library and or something like that, and listen to all sorts of books.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
gonna be my other question. Like, do you count audiobooks as books? Because
Yes.
I know some people are like, well, it's just a podcast without being a podcast. Oh, yeah, I can see that argument, but I don't know, man. It
Yeah.
to me, it's still a book, right?
No,
So
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I. It's funny. I've tried to read Jurassic Park,
mhm.
and I never got through it. But I've listened to Jurassic Park probably half a dozen times over the years,
Yeah,
and even though it's not on my top five, honorable mention, great book.
yeah, nice.
Don't expect what happened in the movies, but expect a great read.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so my first book
Yes.
is Anthem by Ayn Rand, which uh it's interesting to consider this as like one of my favorite books of all time, considering that like I don't really do the political thing, but if I did,
Hmm.
socialism is not my jam at all. But like just the way that they talked about it in this book and basically I don't know if you read it or not, but
No.
the gist of the book is they're in a dystopian land and everybody has like they have their real names but they're also numbers. They're also numbers, and so these two people fall in love and like love is supposed to be outlawed. because if you love someone, you're not for the collective, you're for
Mhm.
just this individual person. And so the book talks about these two characters. They not only discover that they're in love with each other, but they also discover their real names and how like this dystopian future isn't like it's the government basically controlling everybody. And so they're just like, we're gonna fall in love and we're gonna be like amazing and stuff. So the reason I like that book is because it's only like 100 pages, so
Hmm.
I was able to knock that sucker down
Yeah.
in no time, and so and it's compelling the entire time. It's one of the only books I've ever read where I'm just like I could definitely read 1,000 pages of this.
Yeah.
so
It
so
sounds like it gives some 1984 vibes off of it.
yeah, it's definitely that sort of mold
Yeah.
of a book where if you're into socialism, it's one of the like whoever's listening, if anyone is into socialism, it's very much like that would be up your alley.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Hmm.
good. It's good,
That's
man.
cool.
Yeah. So your next book?
All right, so I'm gonna go to the other side. Well, not the other side, but not quite fantasy, and I'm gonna go with The Outsiders.
Nice.
So I read I wouldn't say forced, but this was one of my books to read in, I don't remember what grade I was in, sometime in high school, and I absolutely loved it. I've read it at least a dozen times over the years. I loved all the characters. I just like could never put it down. It was just such a compelling and great story. I thought the movie was good. Um, if you ever get a chance, you watch the extended version they released years ago, where they actually put all the deleted scenes in, and it gears more towards the movie, or I'm sorry, more towards the book.
Oh, nice. That's
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
but yeah, The Outsiders was just it was top notch for me. It'll always hold a good place in my heart.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've read I've seen the movie a bunch of times and it's fantastic. So I can only
yeah,
imagine
great
that could
cast too.
amazing cast.
Yeah,
And I like the underlying theme of like the other side of the tracks and things like that.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
nice.
I was never an other sides of the tracks kid, but I certainly wasn't a
A
rich
frat
kid.
guy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
frat
frat
guy,
guy.
a rich kid, all that stuff. So I was, I obeyed most of the rules, but I wasn't a hood, as they would call it, or a greaser.
Yeah. I remember
Yeah.
those I remember that fight scene where they have like the two gangs have the brawl
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
rain. And I'm like,
Greasers and socias.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was
That was really good in the books too.
yeah, I legit I'm definitely gonna read the book too. So The Outsiders. So I'm writing yours down too. The
Yeah.
Outsiders, and who wrote The Outsiders?
C.S. Hilton, I think, or I could be. I should probably remember that. It's only one of my favorite books of all time. Cider. S.E. Hilton. That was close. Off by
SE.
one. Yeah, off by one letter.
SE. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'll check that out for sure. The book. I
You can
like
probably find it on like YouTube, like we were saying with audios too. So
yeah, definitely
yeah.
gonna check that out for sure. I know on Spotify they do audiobooks now, but it's like
Oh, okay.
you have to pay for it separate from your membership, which I think is ridiculous because
Yeah. Ugh.
it's like why
I
isn't that included? So
Funny enough, I paid for a book recently on my book apps without realizing, thinking I would, because I don't like reading like on either a computer or Kindle or all that. I want to turn pages. And I paid for Congo by Michael Crichton,
mhm.
and I didn't realize it wasn't an audio version. And I
Oh
was
no.
angry at myself because I don't know if you ever seen the movie Congo. It was very ridiculous and kind of campy at times, but the book was unbelievably excellent.
Oh, so that's good at least that the book was good, right?
Yeah, the book was so good. In fact, it was even it's one of those books that there's scenes you don't listen to at 3 in the morning. I learned 'cause they'll spook you and give you nightmares.
Actually, funny story about that. I'm not really a horror guy at all. So
Okay.
the other night I was in calling what I was telling you before. And so
Yeah.
as I'm trying to sleep, all you see is like a car's headlights and like people walking by, and it looked kind of freaky. And so I just say to myself, you know, you're not really into horror, so like this shouldn't scare you. And it didn't. And then, like after that, it didn't. I just snapped out of being afraid.
There are two ways you could look at that. You could be
Yeah.
like, well, I'm not really into horror, so it shouldn't scare me, or "Oh, I'm not into horror, so this is scaring the crap out of me.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
why I'm not into horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember going to those sort of movies with pals, and I would just be like, I'd have my hat over my eyes, and I'd be like looking down. I'd stuff my face in the popcorn and stuff. It was silly.
Horror movies usually don't scare me, but there's been a few times where I watched them on less than enough sleep and had nightmares. Like two I remember was Texas Chainsaw Massacre I watched on after being up for 23 hours straight and fell asleep to having visions of Leatherface chasing me in my dreams. And
The original or
yeah, the original. That
oh,
was
so
the
with
original.
O.J. Simpson, yeah.
And who's the other one? House of a Thousand Corpses by uh Rob Zombie.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I watched that at like 3 in the morning once, and I realized afterwards I was like, "What the hell's wrong with me?"
Yeah.
Like I love this movie, but it's gonna be continue to be a daytime movie on plenty of sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. Speaking of Rob Zombie, so The Devil's Rejects is a great movie.
unbelievable. One of my old. If we did top 5 movies, that would be in it.
That's what we should do next, man. Try to do top
Yeah.
five movies.
Spoiler.
Uh, we might actually that might end up being a 4 hour pod, so we'll have to start
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
in the afternoon or something.
Yeah, that
But
works.
but
It's like a half day.
yeah, so Devil's Rejects, when I discovered that movie in like 2005, I want to say.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
Um, so I was big into like NWA Anarchy and
Hmm.
NWA Wildside.
Oh yeah,
So they had like Reverend Dan Wilson had the Devil's Rejects, and they would
Tank and Iceberg, right?
Tank and Iceberg,
Yeah,
Azrael,
that's right. Yeah.
Sean Tempers had turned on Ace Rockwell, which was like it was my indie version of Hogan turning on Macho, basically.
Yeah.
I was like so crushed and stuff. So but yeah, that movie came out and I was like, oh my God, I wonder if these dudes are like no Rob Zombie and stuff. And I was like, no, they definitely like if anything, they got the idea from the movie,
Yeah.
not zombie from them. So it's
Did have DDP in it, so it was a little bit of a wrestling connection.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, if you've listened to the 38 episode, this is episode 38, but if you listen to any of our episodes, you'll know for sure that we can't go an episode without talking wrestling. So
Yeah, for sure.
okay,
So what
so
do you
my
got for number two?
number two is Memory Man by David Baldacci. Now,
Okay.
there's two things that I want to say about this specifically. There's the entire series is called Memory Man by David Baldacci, but this is also book number one, Memory Man by David Baldacci. The I love this book because it's about it's about a guy overcoming his demons and like going through shit and bouncing back from it. So I like those kind of like underdog stories.
Yeah.
Um to a quick synopsis of the theme of the book is that Amos Decker, is a retired football player. He went pro. He only played one game for the Cleveland Browns. He was trying to block a guy on a kick return,
Hmm.
and he got hit by someone else. He got blindside hit. He died on the field twice.
Oh, jeez.
Comes back, and they're like, "Oh, there's nothing really wrong with you." Turns out, from the second hit that he had,
Hmm.
he got a picture perfect memory.
Hmm.
So he literally can't go to sleep anymore because he remembers everything, including like the murders of his family.
Oh,
And
jeez.
so he becomes a detective solving like various cases, but then there's always tie-ins to when his family was murdered. And so Memory Man, the first book, looks into like the initial story of like how he like the origin of how he became the guy that he was, and like he works with the FBI and things like that. It sort of reminded me a little bit of oh, what was the name of that show? The Mentalist. Did you ever watch
Okay.
it?
No, but I know what you're talking about. I think my mother-in-law watches that.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If we ever do top five TV shows, you'll be like, man, all of your shows are things my mom or my grandma watch. That's basically what I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an excellent book. The entire series is excellent too. I actually just grabbed the seventh and final book of the series so far. I'm hoping that Baldacci writes couple more for them. So
Nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah. What's your third? What's number three?
Well, I'll go with a guy who book by a guy who needs to write two more books and then he can go off into the winds. Storm of Swords by George R. R. Martin, the third book in the Game of Thrones series. Or a Song of Ice and Fire series, I should say. Everybody always says Game of Thrones, but that because of the TV show, but that
Yeah.
was the name of the first book. It's what was I gonna say? Song of Ice and Fire.
Mhm.
So this book just like I I loved it. I read it so many times. Like I skipped other books. The character development for the characters in this book in is just incredible. Um, it has certain things from the shows, certain huge scenes in the shows and everything. Just unbelievably good writing from the show and also or from Martin on this one and is the beginning of what I as much as I love the first couple of seasons of Game of Thrones, uh like when they start this is around the time in Storm of Swords when they started veering off from the books and oof, I love the books and by season 5 I hated the show.
Yeah, yeah.
And I still finished season 5 and then I took like 2 seasons off and then eventually when I knew it was going to end I went back to it and continued and caught up and made sure to watch it at the end. But yeah, Storm of Swords, unbelievable book. I definitely recommend the whole series. But
I,
series isn't done yet.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I have. We haven't gotten a new book in. Let me see, 12 or either like 12 or 13 years. Because I think the fifth book came out the same time as when the series started on HBO.
Hmm. So is he
So
just like working on other stuff, Martin, or like what's taking
I
him
don't know
so long?
what the hell he's doing. He said I think he said he was trying to finish it with one book, but then he wrote so much it ended up becoming two. And I mean, there's the spoilers chapters out there for the Winds of Winter, which I haven't really read, but I know what some of it is. But I guess like he's releasing other books and working with the show and everything. It's just like just finish the book.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, man.
Finish the books, please.
Or like get a ghostwriter to read your notes and then do the
Yeah.
writing for you. Yeah,
Nah,
it's great.
I'd still rather him just finish it than that. But
Yeah.
yeah, Storm of Swords was a phenomenal character development for characters like Jamie, for characters like Jon Snow and all that. They really fleshed them out well in that one.
Have you watched any
Arya,
of the spin-off? Like, is that part of the
House of the
books too, or is
Dragon.
that something else?
It's not part of the five Song of Ice and Fire's books, it's prequels. I watched all but I think like 2 episodes of House of Dragon,
Hmm.
and I don't know why I've never finished it. It's just one of those things. One night I just need to beast on through the last two.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I enjoyed it. I love everything Game of Thrones. I've watched so much history on it. I read like everything I can get my hands on. I've watched like my YouTube shorts are full of Game of Thrones history and everything. So yeah,
yeah.
it's good stuff.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, in a different iteration of Nattering with E, when we were on SoundCloud, a couple pals and I would every season we would do like a recap slash spoiler
Hmm.
episode and then post it right before the season started. So
Nice.
I was talking to those guys recently. I was like, we got to do a panel or something and like just recap like 3 years later, how do we feel about Game of Thrones
Yeah,
after season 8?
if you ever do that, feel free to include me.
Oh, 100%, sir.
It's
100%.
it's funny. When I was catching up, I the last episode for me to catch up to like was the battle for Winterfell in the last season,
Mhm.
and I should have just stopped there.
Honestly,
That episode was so good.
there was no reason to do the rest of that
No,
season.
there really wasn't. And it
It's
was
a,
so good. And I remember just like I'm watching it in my room by myself and just like I'm jumping out of my chair and just like just as they call it, a-hole clench the whole time. So it was so good and just what they did afterwards. Ugh.
yeah, it was unnecessary. Or to me, I sort of I sort of think
Mhm.
that they should have done Daenerys turning into the Mad Queen before they went to Winterfell, and then had Winterfell be the finale, like the fight with
Yeah.
the Night King. I
Or
think I would
just,
have
you
rather
know,
that.
or just not done it at all. But,
Mhm.
that's just me.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
So,
So
what do you
my
got for number 3?
number three for me is a book called Hit Me by Lawrence Block. The
Hmm.
book is about a guy who's going through, he's in New Orleans in, I think, 2008, right around the US recession. And
Okay.
so to make ends meet, he has his own like company where he builds houses, but to make ends meet, he goes back into his former life as a hitman.
Hmm.
And so while he uh aside from being a former hitman, he also is I always forget the name. Those guys who are like stamp collectors, there's like a special name for them.
Oh, wait, stamp collectors?
Yeah, like people who collect
Oh,
stamps.
shoot. I know what you're talking about. I'll
Yeah,
find it.
yeah,
It's something that doesn't sound like it should be a stamp collector.
yeah. So anyways, he's a stamp collector and he essentially um plans all of his hits through with the alibi that he's at a stamp collecting convention.
Hmm.
So like it's a fascinating read just to go through his life because he'll come home, he'll hang out with like his wife and kid, and then he'll get a call from his handler and then go off to he'll be like, hang on, let me double check that there's like a stamp convention going on. And she's like, why? And he's like, oh, I need an alibi for why I'm out there. So half the people that he ends up being tasked with killing are actually other stamp collectors. So it's
Yeah,
the entire series is phenomenal though. Like Lawrence Block is awesome.
that's cool. It's
We
Philetius. How am I
Oh
saying?
yeah,
Phil
flatulist or something like that.
Philatelist. I'm sure I'm saying that right or
Yeah.
wrong, completely wrong.
Oh yeah, philately. It's
Yeah,
an
yeah, yeah. Fi or Philate list.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
wish
it's
Google could say it for me.
yeah, it's a huge genre too.
Oh yeah, yeah, I believe that.
Like I was gonna go to a sports card expo back in November, I think, just to like do something, like just give it a try, see what hobby I wanted to create.
Yeah.
Wanted to start. And so I was like, oh, I'll go to this, but I also see that there's like stamp collection convention going on. But uh because of this book hit me, I'm just like, I don't think I would go to one of those things. What if there's a bunch of contract killers there with a
I get
hobby?
you.
But yeah, it's a great book.
It sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah, Lawrence Block did he did a bunch of different books under the Hit Me title. Like there was Hit Squad, Hitman, Hit Me, things like that. Anyways, he created another character that
Mm.
Liam Neeson played
Hmm.
on an actual thing. So it was interesting. It's
That's
interesting. But
cool.
I recommend it. I recommend it. Hit Me by
Nice.
Lawrence Block. Yeah. So number 4 for you.
All right, so I am gonna go with somebody who I would consider top five author for me, Michael Crichton's Prey. So this was a book about nanotechnology. It's it's about a guy who worked in uh Silicon Valley as a one of those guys that like writes programming and everything,
Yep.
gets blackballed from a company for years, and then or just blackballed in general, and then eventually like an old friend of his gives him a chance to work for their new company as a consultant and go out to someplace wherever they have their facility and kind of overview on the nanotechnology that they're doing. And they find out later that, like in the genre of Terminator or AI and all that, that nanotechnology is actually taking over, and found a way to infect people and control them and cause all sorts of problems, including for his wife that was working for the same company, and take over her and his friend and everything. And yeah, it was around the time I was kind of on a little bit of a science kick and everything, and it was a hella good book. So I mean, like, just about everything Crichton writes is top notch. So this was no slouch of a book for him.
Have you read so like of course you've read Jurassic Park and
Yes.
Lost World and all that.
Yeah.
Have you read Andromeda Strain? I hear that one's a really
No,
good
that's
one.
the only one I haven't, or like one of the ones I haven't read.
Yeah.
My brother was a huge fan of Michael Crichton, still is. He said Andromeda Strain was really good, though. He really enjoyed that. But so I've done, yeah, Lost World, which, F that movie. It was garbage compared to the book. Read the book, it's so much better. Even though I love Jeff Goldblum, one of my favorite people on earth, and I can't watch it.
I love that shirt that you got.
Oh yeah, Goldblum,
The
Goldblum.
gold. Yeah.
Yeah, instead of Goldberg.
Yeah.
That's like my all-time favorite for I showed that to HJ Kyle actually on his Discord. And he's like, "I got to get this shirt. This is the greatest thing." So, yeah, that's top shirt I own. But yeah, like Congo, I've read Sphere. Sphere scared me. Another book that I listened to at 5 in the morning in the dark, and it's like, why am I doing this?
So these are like all daytime books basically to
Yeah,
listen to.
well, yeah, I would say so. Yeah, and they all turned into, well, except for Jurassic Park, they all turned into less than stellar movies. Except for Prey. Prey probably would have been a good movie if they had ever made it.
Yeah, I'm
So,
just reading about it as you speak, and it looks like they've been in talks for years to make it, but it's just hasn't
ah,
happened yet.
yeah, yeah. If they're gonna make it, they better make it right. You make it a Jurassic Park 1, not a Jurassic Park 2.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Um,
So what do you got for number 4?
Number 4, actually, before we go to number 4, my question was going to
Yes.
be, do you like having not Chris Pine. What's the other Chris's
Chris
name?
Pratt.
Chris Pratt. Yeah, yeah. As the guy in these newer Jurassic Park series, or not really?
Yeah, I think so. I think if there were four, what were there like four newer Jurassic
I
Parks? Or,
think so. Three or four.
yeah,
Three or four. Yeah.
I saw the original and I saw the last one. I did enjoy them. So yeah, Chris Pratt's fine. I'll always think of him as Andy on Parks and Rec,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
no matter what he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, are you crying? No, I'm just allergic to mean people or something like that.
Jerks.
To jerks, to jerks.
I'm just
Yeah.
allergic to jerks. Just like yeah, he was one of those characters like like he was fine in the he was good in the first season, but just like after that he took over that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, Johnny Karate and all that stuff. And him and April were just such a great match. Yeah.
Yeah, great.
So, yeah.
My next book
Mhm.
is it's sort of I guess the theme I'm realizing from my books is like underdog story into like gruesome death into like hitman into like
Yeah.
more gruesome death. So the book I was gonna say is In Cold Blood, Truman Capote.
Okay.
So the movie was like Philip Seymour Hoffman did an amazing job as being Truman Capote, um, basically getting the information for the book. In Cold Blood talks about how two criminals go out to this like random house in the middle of nowhere and just murder the entire family just because they feel like it, pretty much. And then Truman Capote, who was a writer for some newspaper, he just like took it so personally. So he was like very invested in like what's the thought process for why you killed these people? Like was someone putting you up to it? There was always a theory that like someone had hired these guys to go kill them, to go kill
Hmm.
his family. But then there's other theories that like no, these guys were just psychos who just like wanted to kill someone.
Yeah.
So the book sort of looks at like that actual murder, like the police investigation, and then the actual like Capote's experience with talking to the actual criminals. I think he actually
Nice.
falls in love with one of the criminals because he was gay. But he falls in love with one of the criminals. Turns out that the criminal falls in love with him, quote unquote, to make him think that he's actually innocent. But then all the evidence ends up pointing towards that specific dude.
Hmm.
So it's a whole interesting
Yeah.
thing.
I've always heard that's a top-notch book. So yeah, that's one day when I hit the lottery and don't have to work anymore, that'll be on my list of books to read
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd
or
be
listen
great.
to.
Yeah, just have a nice like area of your house that's just a library.
Ah, yeah, I've always wanted that. Like I have like dozens and dozens of books upstairs. My wife's always like, "Why don't you give them away? You never read them." I was like, "I want to keep them. I love just, library books. Having like the books for somebody to come over and be like, "Oh, look at this. Look at this. Check out this book." Yeah.
It's like an
Yeah.
anchor. It's like an anchor man. I own many leather bound books.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Not all mine are leather bound. Most of them are written by wrestlers, but I have a nice mix up there.
Yeah. So before we get into our fifth options, let's go to our honorable mentions. What do you have for your honorable mentions?
Congo, I already mentioned. Congo was a phenomenal book. It was a great story, and the movie didn't really do it justice. I perversely love the movie as I can admit that it's bad, but with such a great cast, ironically. Um, so I would go with that. Just all of the Lord of the Rings series. I would go with what else with that? I don't know if I could pick just one, but I got when I was how old was I? Maybe like 10, 15 years ago, I was on a big Alex Cross um book reading time.
Oh my God, did we just become best friends?
Yeah, I
Like
remember you mentioning that at one
I'm on
point.
that currently. Like I'm
Yeah.
recalling that. Oh my
Like
God.
The ones I remember like Cross Country was good, where he goes to I think it was like Laos or one of those countries. There was one where he talks about I think it was like his great grandfather or something like that. That was a that defends a slave in Africa. Not in Africa, in like Civil War times or something like that. That one
Mhm.
was I can't remember the title. That one was excellent. Um,
Actually,
but yeah.
for audiobooks, the guy who plays Alex Cross in the audiobooks
Hmm.
he's phenomenal. That
Yes.
guy, I was
That's how I listen. I never read a page of Alex Cross books, but I listened to all of them. Ironically, the ones I didn't listen to were the famous movie ones, like what was it Kiss the Girls and what was the other one that had Morgan Freeman?
Along
About a
Came a
spider.
Spider.
A Long
Yeah,
Game
yeah.
of Spider. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those were the two I'd never listened to.
Yeah, both are great. Both are
Yeah.
great books. But yeah, Peter Fernandez, he's excellent.
Yeah.
He was actually in if memory serves, Peter Fernandez was in Luke Cage.
Oh, okay.
He was
Nice.
not the guy who was the barber, but you know that guy who would always sit around and like shoot the breeze with him, an older guy.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
That's
know what
him.
you're talking about.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, that's cool. And my last I'll give my last honorable mention was a book I read later in life was To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, nice.
I absolutely I don't think I read that until I was like 35 or 36, but I loved it. It was very, very good story. And it stuck with me for a long time. And me and it led to a joke with me and a friend of mine I used to walk with in the morning. We used to walk past a dilapidated house every time.
Hmm.
Every time we would go, "Hey, Boo Radley."
That's
They fixed up the
awesome.
house, so that joke stopped. But yeah. What about you? What do you got for honorable mentions?
So just to go back to before honorable mentions, just to go back to that, finding good narrators for your audiobooks, being like, is it important? Is it not important? So
Mm.
Peter J. Fernandez, the guy who does Alex Cross, excellent.
Yes.
There's also another guy named Michael Boatman.
Hmm.
He does he reads all the books for like what Luke Cage was reading in the series were actual books, like Little Green by Walter Mosby, things like that. Like he's a very good like he makes you feel like he's the guy, basically.
Yeah.
He's the
Yeah.
character. So that's good. For honorable mentions, I would say one book that sticks out to me that like I probably like I'd be I should mention it, even though I hate this book, but I think it deserves an honorable mention.
Hmm.
Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger.
Never read it.
So it was required reading
Hmm.
in English class, like in high school.
It
And
probably would have been for me if I didn't go to idiot high school for most of it. But
yeah, the gist of the book is this guy runs away and he has like a coming of age story basically. And
okay.
he's like the ultimate pessimist when he leaves and he's like, screw my family, screw the world, everybody's a phony, uh things like that. And then when he comes back from his like adventure, his family has no idea that he's gone because one of his arguments is that he's like, nobody pays attention to me, I'm invisible. And then it literally plays to that. They're like, oh, you were
Hmm.
gone? Like, we just thought you were in your room for like the last 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And he's like, yeah, if we want to say that, sure, fine. But yeah, it's all about like just the coming of age and the actual book itself. I remember being like 15, 16 years old, hated that book. Like
Yeah.
I thought it was too dumb. But then I went back and read it later in like in my 20s and I was like, no, I can see some of the points that he's making.
Yeah.
Um Another one would be anything Hemingway, pretty much. Like For Whom the Bell Tolls is great.
Hmm.
Old Man in the Sea, things like that. Like those are good. I used to love
Yeah.
Steinbeck as well. So like East of Eden is a great book, and yeah, stuff like that. So and then we'll have to do a whole separate episode and get Will and Tom on with us to go over comic books.
Yes. Yeah. I never really read a lot of comic books. I had a period in my life where I read like the majors, Fantastic Fours,
Mhm.
X-Men's, Spider-Man's, all that. But the ones I did read for about that year and a half, 2 years or so, they really stuck with me.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was around the time where it got popular in the mid '90s when the X-Men cartoon came out and the
right.
Spider-Man cartoon, and I'll die on the hill that the Spider-Man cartoon was better, as great the X-Men cartoon was, but yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
I want to add in too. I know
Sure.
you said with audiobooks having a great reader.
Mhm.
If anybody is a fan of the Lord of the Rings and can find JRR Tolkien actually reading the Lord of the Rings,
Oh, nice.
do
Okay.
it because it's nothing like hearing the professor himself read all the stuff. I listened to a podcast called The Prancing Pony where they're going through the Lord of the Rings, and they've been going through it for years. They spend like 3 episodes on just like one chapter, basically. They read excerpts from the book, and every once in a while they'll send in like they'll be like, "Oh, we have this passage here, but we're not going to read it. We found somebody better," and it'll be like an excerpt of Tolkien reading it.
That's awesome. Sorry, so
Yeah.
it's called the Prancing Pony?
The Prancing Pony. Yeah,
Got
they
it. Okay.
uh they did the Hobbit. They did, I believe, the Silmarillion, maybe, but I started with Lord of the Rings, and yeah, it took me like a year or two to just catch up to where they are, and they're on the Return of the King now. So
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, or
That's great.
I should say, book six of Return of the King, the Frodo Sam half.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so getting towards the end.
I feel like two things because I love Lord of the Rings as well, so I'll have to track down that podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna read the books for sure again, and then
Yeah.
I gotta binge the movies, of course. Gotta go
Oh,
through all of them.
I last year I binged the movies with my son
Mhm.
because we read The Hobbit together and he loved it. And he loved the cartoon movie. And then we binged the movies together and it was just awesome. It was so cool just watching all that with him. It took us like 3 sittings to finish Return of the King too because I made him watch the extended version. It was like 4 hours.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. But that's like a great like parent moment, when you
Yeah.
can like share that stuff with your kid. Like that's phenomenal, man.
He
That's
definitely
great.
asked me a few times, Daddy, why are you crying? It's, scenes in the movie that just, they get to me. You know,
Yeah,
Gandalf
yeah.
dies, Boromir dies, so I can say stuff like that. Theoden gives his speech. You know.
See, my kid would be like, Dad, why are you crying? You're not in your car going to leaving work.
No, I cry going to work.
Yeah, yeah. I
So,
had I had a funny moment with with a friend earlier from work. Um, we go to the gym together after
hmm.
work, and so um, I haven't been crying recently because she's in my car. So I don't cry when someone's in the car. So she's like, "Oh,"
Smart idea.
she's like, what about like all the times you tell us that you cry? Like, how come I never see you cry when we go to gym? And I'm just like, it's because you're in the car. So
Tell her to drop a weight on your foot next time.
exactly. So I said to her today, are you going to gym afterwards? And she was like, no, I'm kind of stressed, so I'm going to I'm gonna go home and cry. And I'm like, why are you going home and crying? Like you should kick your husband out of his car, because she doesn't drive. You should
Hmm.
kick your husband out of his car and then just cry for a bit and then let him back in. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny.
Nice.
So your fifth and final book.
So this is out of left field. It was a book by a paleontologist named Robert T. Bakker called Raptor Red. So it was a book my brother found when we were early teenagers, and it's the story of not velociraptors, but Utahraptors. And he basically in his it basically came up with a scenario for about a year or two following a couple of Utahraptors and um like what they were doing, how they behaved. It was kind of like a history, not really history, but kind of like a documentary book in a way, but a fictional documentary because obviously nobody knows what that's like. But this guy was like a major paleontologist, I believe. He is who Alan Grant in Jurassic Park is based off of.
That's so cool.
And he actually gets name dropped in Jurassic Park. When Timmy's talking to Grant about his book in the beginning, when they're getting in the cars, and Timmy says, I read this other book by this guy named Bakker, and Grant slams the door on him. But yeah, my brother discovered this years ago, or geez, would be almost 30 years ago. And yeah, I've listened to it on audio. I actually was listening to it today because I bought it on audio years ago. And if you were, I was a dinosaur kid. I still like listening to documentaries on dinosaurs and nature from that age, and it still interests me. So this is a pretty cool book to listen to.
It's awesome.
A fun story.
So based on your list, you're basically hobbits, knights, and dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And then random rich kids fighting
Greasers.
Greasers, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And nanotechnology.
That's awesome. So you're all over the place, as you said.
100% all over the place.
Yeah.
So what do you got for number 5?
Number 5, I guess it's speaking to a lot of what I've been saying too, like about spy novels and Hitman and things like that. So this one is called The 39 Steps by John Buchan. The book is actually 39 pages. And essentially it's about this guy who becomes a spy during, I think it's the 30s. Like it's right before I think it's between World War II and like before the Cold War started. But essentially he's
probably the 40s then. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a spy for the British, and like various things happen to him. The 39 steps. Hang on, I'll get a better description. That was a shit description.
Yeah, thinking about that now that I'm done with my 5, maybe I should have pulled up descriptions to describe it better than I can.
Oh no, it was
my marble mouths.
So while on vacation in London, Canadian Richard Hannay becomes embroiled in an international spy ring related to the mysterious 39 steps. Then he meets agent Annabella Smith, who is soon killed in his apartment, and he's blamed for it. And the police are hunting him for the murder. So it's come up as like there's been various movies about it. Like Hitchcock made a movie in the 30s.
Yeah, I looked it up and I saw that what was I gonna say? Oh, that name is so close to my last name too. Hannay and Heaney.
Yeah, Richard Hannay.
Yeah. Ironically, Richard is my father's name too, so really close.
So potentially your dad did the 39 steps, I guess.
No. Maybe that's why he doesn't go by his first name anymore.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's an excellent book. It's a quick read, as I said. 39 pages, probably like what, an hour, I'd say.
Yeah, something like that.
A little bit less than an hour, but yeah, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. I like those quick reads that are like not a lot of description.
Yeah.
More like they're very much to the point and all that stuff. So I
My
like
first time I ever read Frankenstein was a quick read because it was an abridged version. It was like 86 pages.
nice.
I read it like 3 times to prep for a test in one weekend. Got a 98.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, like the way that just like everything in wrestling, I was like, you must read a lot too and stuff. So
I used to.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
great.
It's fun to be able to find 5 books that aren't wrestling books too.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Oh, maybe eventually. See, as we talk on this pod, we're also brainstorming for future episodes.
Yes.
And so I'm thinking like I got to get more into, as I was saying off air, I got to finish the Brett auto and the Andre auto, and then I'm gonna get the Roddy auto. But
Yes.
anyways,
Yeah.
eventually I want to do an episode where we do like wrestler biographies
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
like top
I've
five or
certainly read
whatever.
a lot of those.
Yeah. Have you read the Bucks one or Moxley's?
Yeah. Yeah. I read both of those. Bucks one was good. Moxley's was great. I really enjoyed both. Um, my all-time favorite is Freddie Blassie because I'm a huge classic wrestling fan, and that guy, as I say, he started in I think the 20s or 30s or something like that, probably the 20s,
Yeah,
and so it's like, in a way, it's almost like a wrestling history book.
I gotta
So
track that one
yeah, it
down.
goes. Oh man, that one was it. Just the stories he has of going to Japan and going to California and all that. It's just wrestling in front of the largest Japanese crowd, I think, of all time. And
Amazing.
people dying watching him, having heart attacks when he's biting Ricky Dozan on the head. Yeah. Yeah, that's one I always recommend people because it's so cool.
Yeah. So have you watched Iron Claw yet? Did you go see it?
No, I haven't. I have not. It just didn't work. I was supposed to go see it with my wife and my brother and his fiance, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah.
So
Is it
yeah.
based on a book, or I'm sure there's stuff on the Von
Um,
Erichs and Texas?
no, it's not based on a book. I think it's just based on the Von Erich story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
I'm sure like there's got to be novels or autobiographies about like the Texas territories and stuff. That stuff
probably
that
yeah.
stuff interests me a lot too. Like
Yeah.
territories, how it was pre like McMahon taking everything
Oh
over.
yeah. Yeah, I always loved like there's an NWA book that talks about the territories and the formation of NWA. That one I remember reading it. Excellent. And I think there's one on Stampede that was crazy good. And I'm sure that, yeah, there's tons of other ones. I know there's documentaries on there was one documentary that was non WWF documentary. And it had it was before the Sportatorium was torn down. It had Kevin Von Erich going back to it and everything. That was really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I got to track
Yeah.
that down too. So the Rumble was excellent considering just to wrap up. The
Hmm.
so the books were so these are all the books that we've picked. I'm gonna try and post this in the show notes to say like Brundan's list, my list. So when
Yeah.
people track it down, they can totally check these out as well. In terms of the Rumble, we got the crazy news on Friday that Vince McMahon is finally out
Thank
of
God.
wrestling, quote unquote. I still believe that it's a see it to believe it thing, given how quickly he came back the last time he was quote unquote out of wrestling. So,
He still
um,
owned it though the last time he was out.
so
TKO owns
this
it
time he
now.
doesn't own it, right?
Yep. So he would have to be let back by TKO owner.
Oh, okay.
And this is like I think with the text messages that came out and all the gruesome stories and everything, I think this is just the nail in the coffin, hopefully, figuratively and literally.
Yeah, he's done for sure.
Yeah.
The thing that bugs me about it from a personal standpoint is that
Hmm.
like I share the same birthday as Vince McMahon. So I'm
Hmm.
like, like but I disregard it now because like it also has
There you go.
I have the same birthday as Cal Ripken as
There
well.
you go.
So I like to
Same
think of
birthday
it
as
as
Cal Ripken. That works.
that works better than
Yeah.
McMahon. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, just generally speaking, just hearing like all the horrible stuff that he did, you can see why for years wrestling's been considered like an old boys club and like weird shit like that. So
Yeah. They're gonna
it's
have to do a whole season on Dark Side for Vince McMahon.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, if you thought like the Jake Roberts and like Marty Jannetty episodes were a mess,
Oof.
like
Yeah,
this is nothing by comparison. They're
the
nothing by
Jake
comparison.
the Jake one was rough because I always heard good things about Grizzly Smith and then his father, and then to hear the horrific stories about him, it's just like, oh my God,
Yeah,
what a pedophile.
yeah,
Ugh.
yeah. It's crazy.
But yeah.
Yeah, Dark Side's actually something good people should watch if they're big into like it's well done for a documentary series, I would say.
Yeah, it certainly is. Watch the I always say watch the Dr. D episode, David Schultz, because that's probably the only one that ends well.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think at the end of it, it talks about him going to Puerto Rico and saving somebody's life. So I was like, at least there's a dark side where it has a good ending.
Yeah. Most of them are just like
Yeah,
his family
dead,
never talks to him again, or his family were a bunch of scum along with him,
or he's
but
dead.
or he's dead, or he's dead.
Yeah.
One of those. Uh, so before we wrap up,
Yeah.
where can the people find you, Mr.
Um,
Brundan?
you could find me Irish Misfit on Twitter. I'm not super duper active, but you can find me reposting all the stuff. Always plug the Shining Wizards because they helped create this amazing wrestling community that we have, and people like me and you wouldn't have met without them, like Will, Tom, all these guys. So plug them, listen to them, ignore 90% of the notes I write, but no, just kidding. And yeah, yeah, that's pretty much it for my plugs.
Nothing to plug the Michael Mann fan club.
No, no, we'll see what he does if he shows up WrestleMania weekend,
That's right. That's right.
fights Hornswoggle, and we all see.
It would be hilarious. It'll never happen, but it'll be hilarious from like a trolling Matt from the Wizards standpoint. If Cody's about to win, and all of a sudden, like here comes Michael Mann and like costs him the world title.
I don't think I would I don't think I'd ever watch WWE again if that happened.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Hmm.
As for me, you can catch me here on Nattering with E. You can also catch me on E_Freeds on Twitter and Nattering with E on Instagram. As always, if you want to get on the show to shoot the breeze with me or with both of us, feel free to contact either of us on social media. And yeah, we'll see you around next week. Next time I'm on, SJ returns for another episode.
Nice.
2 and 3 weeks, which is pretty impressive.
Yes.
We're gonna be talking about Canadian music. We've been meaning to do that for a long time. So
If you're a
Canadian
Brian
music,
Adams fan, tune in.
Bryan Adams, O Town, Dallas, no, not Dallas Soul's American, but yes, plenty of Canadian bands. So yeah, it'll be great. It'll be great. Anyways, Brendan, thank you as always, my friend.
Thank you as well.
All right, we'll see you, everybody. Also, just before we go, when I did the episode with Tom a few months ago, he was asking, what do we call the fans for Nattering with E? And I was like, the Natterers? But I don't really know if that's good or not. Like, we need an actual name. So if you listen to this regularly, please let me know what you would call the fans of Nattering with E.
Yeah, I got nothing on that one.
Yeah. All right. See you, people.